Witch Queen, Risen, Haunted, Plunder, Seraph. Let's go. Hello everyone, this is Wicked and welcome. In this video I'm going to attempt at giving my personal concise review of this past year in Destiny 2. Emphasis on attempt and emphasis on personal. If you either agree or disagree with me, you're welcome to stay a little bit and hang out. To make this review make a little more sense, here's my credentials. I have been playing Destiny 2 since the moment it launched on Battle.net many years ago, and other than an extended period last year where I was moving to a different country and didn't have access to the game, I have been playing Destiny as my main game. I am a Warlock player for the most part, and while I try to excel at PvP, I consider myself a PvE player first and second. I'm also one of those weird ones who enjoyed the campaign in Curse of Osiris and the Prophecy weapons, and I play Gambit a lot. With that out of the way, here's what I think Destiny 2 Year 5, the year of the Witch Queen, felt like. The good, the bad, and the ugly. The main story of Witch Queen alone was worth the purchase for a grand majority of players, myself included. For the first time in a rather long time in the game's massive story, we felt something was actually happening. We felt a little scared because up until that point we were the immortal space soldiers and oddities, and somehow our enemies are now using our immortality like powers. This sense of urgency kept the campaign very intriguing in terms of narrative and in terms of mechanics. Well, we had the introduction of the third revision of our light abilities, second one being in the Forsaken expansion, and it allowed for even more customization to our Void abilities first. Witch Queen expansion also brought weapon crafting and just like pretty much anything Bungie. The first time experience was imperfect at best. Still, more reasons to play and a thrilling campaign in a new seemingly massive location were driving the player base forward. I would assume most players, if not all, would wholeheartedly agree that the Ahamkara illusion and the final mission's skybox and narrative stand out amongst everything else in the campaign of the Witch Queen. The Traveler actually moving away from us, even in an illusion form, was hearkening and foreshadowing things that were yet to come. The raid, Vow of the Disciple, had a very interesting story, but to me it appeared that we don't need to interact with this story right now. This will come into play later, probably. In parallel with the big expansion, we had the launch of Season of Risen. The Risen? One of those. This is an indirect sequel to Season of the Chosen, where we partially allied with the Cabal to the whole enemy of my enemy is my friend type of deal, and the focus of this season is to understand the namesake even more, the Risen. Why does the enemy have the light? Let's find out why and take the light back. Crow does not seem jubilant about how we're doing, what we're doing, and to whom. I am going to completely skip the Dead Messenger Vox Obscura mission narrative because of its location and design. There is not really anything to say other than the last 4 prophecies, which gave us 4 images of the future for seasons to come, down to the beat. Season of the Risen's mementos are probably going to be the weapons and their design. One last thing before closing this double chapter is to mention, personally for me, the best moment of this entire launch season is when we learned that our Traveler had given the light to Savathun by choice. Maybe because she had protected humanity from the collapse, maybe because it was tricked into doing so, or maybe just maybe, because Traveler is not this divine entity that we think it is, which is a recurring theme in the next seasons. Or maybe bravery inspires sacrifice in the Book of the Traveler. Luz and Hive are now legends, albeit it was clear that this was not the end for the Traveler story. But moving back from macro to micro, we reach the Haunted, the shadow drop of the season that brought back the Leviathan ship, this time completely rotten by the Witness, the seemingly big bad, and the nightmares that it was attracting from Earth's moon. After Season of the Splicer, and later with Season of Seraph, this was another attempt at a more personal story, individual demons and monsters and alike. These nightmares we need to wipe away were those of Zavala's wife, Keidel's master, and Crow's old self. Through these exorcisms, the most prominent for me was Crow accepting Aldrin Sav. This will be revisited with the ending of this year and Season of Seraph. 2.5 major highlights for this season were the new rework of Solar subclasses, a new dungeon for those who pay extra, and a few very favorite weapons returning from Season of Opulence. I'll let you decide which one of these three is the half. Duality Dungeon is a very good side quest in both its design and its narrative, and to some measure its reward structure. If I had to summarize this entire season in one sentence, I would probably say something like Haunted and Duality explain fully why Leviathan raids and the whole Leviathan ship will never return to the game. They have completed this chapter and shelved it in the history section. While I hope I don't get to eat my words, I wonder what happens with the derelict Leviathan, with the Lightfall. Does Callus call it home? Remains to be seen. Following with the theme of the indirect sequels, Season of Plunder, the pirate season, arrives to accompany the mixed narrative of the Beyond Light, with Aramis getting unfrozen, and Splicer with Mithrax doing Mithrax things. This season is about collecting ancient evil powers that are spread out in the galaxy, or where Tangled Shore used to be. At the end of the season, we realize that this collection is the remains of Nezarec, and Mithrax fuses this power into a cup of tea and has Osiris wake up by drinking it. Believe me, this was even more confusing to me into writing into this script. But I think this season's narrative and motives are not finished yet. Maybe in the third season of Lightfall, we will see what happens, or maybe sooner. Bungie seems to be liking forecasting things ahead of time very much. Plunder also finished the trifecta of our light subclasses with the new arc content, and depending on who you ask and which class they play as, you will receive different answers. Personally, Plunder's theme was interesting for me, but because it was too boring too soon, it became a little tedious halfway through the season. The weapons and the narrative design were not interesting for me at all. This time was the first time that I noticed the 3 bars of upgrade tier system for the seasonal vendor thing is really aging. I wish it is changed into something else, at least for a little bit, because I feel intentionally delaying and keeping the story locked might be good for series and specials, animations and anime, but for video game where there is more this sense of interactivity, it just became a little, like I said, too tedious for me. If it is the same for you, I feel you, sir/ma'am. I do. Following on their promises, Bungie brought the King's Fall raid from Destiny 1, the Taken King, expansion into Destiny 2 as a reprised raid. After Vault of Glass, this would be the second raid to receive the remaster treatment. Playing through it multiple times made me realize why this raid is looked at as the best one in Destiny's nostalgia-goggled fanbase. It was a very peak and pinnacle design for when it came out. It is a relic of its own age. At the time when this raid had come out, nothing like that existed before, at all, in the first-person area at least. Obviously, it is a good raid, good story and design, and above-average weapons, but just like Duality, this was a chapter that did not push the narrative forward. Granted, you don't have to have stories happening all the time. It was a beautiful, dark, and amazing side quest that we all got to experience because it was a free release, and also totally unrelated, but Oryx spawns at the back of the room. Many paragraphs later, we reach Season of Seraph, the third chapter in the Warmind story after Season of Almighty. This was the season to lead in to Lightfall, the most different and unique expansion in Destiny 2's history so far, because instead of following the trend of going dark and deep and mystical, we were gonna go neon and deep and mystical. The narrative of Seraph was about downloading and repairing the Warmind Rasputin through gathering pieces of the AI from the Submind, a long-forgotten part of the Destiny's story vault. And in doing so, we realized that we have created a massively powerful system, a massively powerful weapon that our enemies are stealing, and at the end of the season, Traveler wakes up, the whole heartbeat thing, and decides to leave. As it is leaving, we see Aramis from Beyond Light's Frozen ending trying to arm that massively powerful weapon to shoot it down so that the Traveler would abandon nobody anymore under the Witness's guidance or influence. But before firing all cylinders though, we see Rasputin sacrificing himself and destroying the entire Warmind and Warsat network subset, ending another chapter of Destiny 2's lore. This results in the Traveler staying in low orbit instead of leaving Earth. The Witness believes it is staying because it has nowhere else to run, because the pyramid ships are approaching us. The others are still discussing why the Traveler didn't leave. Did the Rasputin sacrifice influence this? Would it have abandoned another civilization? The big highlight for me here was Crow putting his hoodie on and walking away in silence, like Aldronsov. I believe this will also be revisited, maybe in Season of Defiance. The launch season of Lightfall, maybe later. Bungie usually won't show things that they cannot explain later, usually. This season also had its own dungeon, Spire of the Watcher, which I was very hyped at first for going into it because it felt like something I would be interested in, but after running it multiple times, it is a dungeon. But if you look at the Shattered Throne and the Pit of Heresy and Prophecy, and then you look at Spire of the Watcher, you see that the designs are radically different, and those dungeons were included in the expansion, and this is something that people paid for. It is a little icky, to say the least. So this, all of it, was the good, I guess, of this year. Fantastic storytelling, engaging activities, amazing weapons and abilities. Probably the best year, or one of the best years of this franchise, despite some really low lows and sad periods. I think statistically, Witch Queen and the whole year 5 brought forward what Bungie had planned. They had a plan, I think they executed it without a lot of problems. Now, I think it's time we addressed the bad. This section will not be as long. I personally do not find this year of the game as disengaging as what most people do. The problem here is a severe lack of novelty. While on the surface, every season brought forward a quote-unquote new set of activities, in reality it was just go here, shoot this thing, race your teammates for your bounty or challenge specific kills, get the rewards, spend the seasonal currency to get the other reward you may need for the seal, gather enough energy for your umbrellas to get the patterns, and it just became a little bit too repetitive. This system, or a version of it, was there since Season of Undying, and this was like a couple years ago. Another bad would be a serious disregard for playlist activities. All three, Crucible, Strikes, and Gambit, feel, as of writing of this script, which is a week before Lightfall, these three, I feel they're all a little samey and uninteresting compared to what we would get every expansion. There is nothing waiting for us at the end of this activity or these activities that we cannot acquire in other places or in other shapes. Crucible received 2 new maps, I believe, Disjunction and Cathedral of Dusk. As I mentioned, I am not a PvP player, but even I can see why a big portion of the player base find these 2 maps less than ideal. As an average rule, a good PvP interaction is fast and chaotic, and this was not it. Gambit. That's it. We did have 2 new strikes added to the game with Witch Queen, and I don't have any major problems with these 2 strikes, but I don't love them either. My heart still goes out to the Pyramidion and Savathun song strikes, and if and when they bring those back, or bring back at least Io, I hope they bring a reworked version of the Pyramidion. I think the only highlight from the playlists were the weapons, some weapons, like the Gambit pulse rifle yesteryear that could roll with Desperado, because nostalgia sells, the Riptide fusion rifle from Crucible, and the prolonged engagement SMG, or the Strident whistle bow from Strikes, because of their archetypes. Your experience may vary though, to each their own. And finally, the ugly. I am using this word metaphorically because this game looks fantastic. Arguably, it is tremendously difficult to find an artistic design mishap or ugliness in this world. The skyboxes, the creepy areas, and everything in between are meticulously designed to tell a story. My personal favorite would have to be the big worm in the pyramid ship and the skybox from the Surf's Shield exotic mission. The ugly in Destiny 2 Year 5 is the philosophy that Bungie are implementing in their own game design. Fast is better than good. I'm quoting this from one of the game dev slides from a few months back. This is sadly the state of things in Bungie and Destiny 2. Destiny 2 is a live service game. Things are breaking very rapidly. The game has had to shut down frequently for bugs and glitches, and items and characters being removed or deleted or replaced. Insurmountable amount of connection issues and error codes. This game is beautiful, but under its skin, like the bow from Season of the Risen, is an ugly old land tank. These issues are so impactful for the game's performance that the developers directly addressed. They are working on a network solution to reduce these lags and lag spikes. They claimed it was a side effect of skill-based matchmaking, or whatever Destiny 2's equivalence of it is, and I'm giving them, just like you probably, the benefit of the doubt. We'll have to wait and see. Another ugly in Destiny 2 Year 5 was the event passes. Another heavily monetized battle pass for special events in the game. I think in the past we could have received and earned these rewards for free just for playing the game and the event, but now they have just split the rewards. They're all cosmetic, but rewards nonetheless, into an event card. This is a little too mobile phony for me, because I have seen the days where they would shower us in vanity items and loot for special events. It is a little ironic for a Christmas event with the spirit of giving to have a paid event pass. And I fear this is not going to stop. It may not get worse, but I hope with all the reworks and the 3.0s and the reprises, someone somewhere at Bungie takes a look at vanity items and non-weapon or armor items, and they would find a way to put all of this into loot, or put all of this loot into the looter shooter. And yeah, I think that's it. This was my first video after a long time of absence, and this is my new channel. I decided to start over at the beginning again, and I intend to make hopefully cool or cooler video essays. If you are still watching this, thank you, and I hope you're staying safe, and I hope you're staying sane. Lightfall is almost here. Until the next time we meet, this, as always, has been Wicked, signing off.